Hi everyone, my name is Tom Pettit and I wanted to give you an update on the tour. And I started to type it out as an email and it just wasn't coming together. I know that what I need to communicate to you will come across a lot better as I tell you in person. So I'm going to do this video and keep it brief, but give you an update as to what you can expect on our tour, which starts July 5th, which I'm really looking forward to. As you know, as I announced by email several weeks ago, the church historical sites open May 28th. So when we get there in July, they're going to be open. Now, as I've been making plans and finalizing the details of the tour, I've been communicating with the missionaries at each of the historic sites we will be visiting, and I've been visiting with the site directors who are kind of the ones in charge of making decisions at each of those sites. And what I have learned is what open actually means. Open means that they will be taking groups of 8 people at a time through the historic sites every 30 minutes, which means that 16 people will be able to go through the historic site every hour. Now, pre-COVID, we could take a group of 50 and we could send them through in 2 groups of 25 on each tour. And that worked just great. And so the opportunity to get everybody through each of the historic sites is dramatically slowed down. Because of that, they are not allowing me or any other tour director to book group tours at the historic sites, because we would be monopolizing a big block of time, half a day at the historic sites. So I'm unable to make those reservations for those group tours at each historic site. And so I wanted to give you an update as to what to expect, now knowing and understanding that definition of what open means at the historic sites. But as I do so, I want you to also keep in mind one thing, and that is that the governor of New York has, and New York has the tightest restrictions. So kind of as New York goes, the rest of the states that we'll be visiting will go. The governor of New York has said multiple times, including today, that he expects New York to be 100% open come July 1st. Now, if that's the case, we would expect and hope that the church would follow suit and we'd get back to doing tours this July the way we were doing them in July pre-COVID. But we don't know. Today is May 13th. We've got a couple of months until our tour begins. And so please know that that what I say today might change. You can take the information that I'm sharing with you today as a worst case scenario, understanding that if there's any changes, it's going to be more positive in allowing those historic sites to be more open than they are today. So normally, how I do it is I talk and I share the history of the church, the stories, the doctrine found in the church, in the Doctrine and Covenants, and I share all those things as we make our way to a historic site. Now, I've been to these historic sites so many times that I know the missionary script. I know the things they'll share, the things they'll testify of, the stories they talk about. And so I share everything leading right up to where I hand you off to the missionaries. They do the storytelling that I know that they do. And then when you get back on the bus, I pick up right where they left off and continue on with the story of the history of the church. Well, under this circumstance that I've described, I'm going to tell all the stories that the sister missionaries tell when you're on site touring around with them. In fact, I'm going to be able to take more time to share more details, more stories, and more of the doctrinal insights than the sister missionaries have time to do when they're leading you through the half-hour tour of the historic site. And so by doing that, when you get to the site, you'll have heard all the history, you'll have heard all the stories, you'll be aware of the doctrine that was revealed at each of those historic sites. And by so doing, it'll be a different experience than it would otherwise be. Let me explain from experience. I've had several people come on church history tours with me more than once. And they'll come on a church history tour, they'll have a great time, and they'll come back with a different family member or a different friend, and they always tell me that the second time was the better time. And the reason being, and they said, and I've experienced this for myself, is that the first time they're trying to figure it out. the historic dates, who lived here, what happened here, the details. They're trying to wrap their minds around the history of it all. And then the second time when they come, they've done all that homework, they've learned, they've got their mind around it, and they've got that historical education behind them. And now with that, they come and they experience the church historical site. And that experience is not focused mentally on the things that happened here, but their heart's open to what spiritually took place here. And the experience that they, and I've had myself, is that it's very different when you walk into a church history site not looking for the educational experience, but the spiritual experience, because you've already had the educational experience. And so if the church historical sites don't open greater than they currently are, then what I'm going to do is help prepare you for that spiritual experience by providing all the educational experience up front. With that, let me take you briefly through our itinerary. Okay, so on July 5th, you fly into Cleveland. We have no scheduled activities that day, so fly in anytime you want. I'll get you from the airport to the hotel. You'll be able to find dinner. And the very next morning, July 6th, is when we'll meet for the first time as a group. I've got the ballroom at the hotel reserved for us. So we're going to get together that first morning, and we're going to have a fireside about Kirtland, because that's where we're going to be going on July 6th. So I'm going to give you great detail, all the educational things up front there at the hotel. We're going to get on the bus. I'm going to keep telling stories and keep sharing doctrinal insights and what have you, the historical context. And then we're going to get to, our first stop will be the Kirtland Temple. Now, our church doesn't own the Kirtland Temple. The owners of the Kirtland Temple have decided not to open the Kirtland Temple for interior tours for the entire year of 2021. So we won't be going inside the Kirtland Temple, but they do have an amphitheater of sorts outside the Kirtland Temple on the temple grounds. We're going to use that. We're going to sit there in the shade of the trees, and I'm going to talk to you more and specifically about the Kirtland Temple, the building of it, everything they tell you on the tour of the temple, I'm going to share with you. Plus, I'm going to share with you all the things that happened in the temple, including the day of dedication and April 3rd, and the things that happened on that special day. I'm going to tell you all about the spiritual manifestations that took place in the Kirtland Temple. We're then going to get on the bus and go to the Morley Farm. Now, pre-pandemic, there were never missionaries. Our church owns that property, but there weren't missionaries recently at the Morley Farm, and even after the site's open completely, there still won't be missionaries there. And so I'll do what I normally do and take you to the Morley Farm, take you to that sacred site, and tell you all the stories of that place. Well, then, and somewhere in here we're having lunch and dinner and whatever, but then we're going to go to what they call Historic Kirtland. And Historic Kirtland comprises of the Newell K. Whitney home and store. In the upper room was the School of the Prophets, where the Word of Wisdom and other revelations were received. And I'm going to give you all the education up front, so when you walk onto those sites, even on the outside of that home and that store, you'll be able to have a spiritual experience. Now, here's what I tell people when they ask me, and even when they don't ask me, such as this case right now, is that of all the things we learned in 2020, one of the things that we have learned is that the Lord won't shortchange us for doing the very best we can. We have great at-home church meetings because we haven't been able to go to the church house to have our meetings there. So likewise, I anticipate that the Lord won't shortchange our spiritual experience at these historic sites simply because we're on the outside of the reconstructed or remodeled building instead of on the inside. But that's up to each individual's experience, of course. Now here is the first time on the tour where you're not going to be able to, unless things change, where you're not going to be able to go into the historic site. What I'm going to do as part of the educational prep that I'm going to help you obtain is I'm going to send you on your way into historic Kirtland to visit the outside of the home and the store, and I'm going to send you with an envelope. And in that envelope is going to be some information. It's going to be some questions. It's going to be some guidance as to where to find answers and that sort of thing. It's going to be set up kind of like a Come Follow Me lesson, which you're going to be able to participate in individually or with whoever you're traveling with. while you're standing there on the doorstep of the home of Newell K. and Elizabeth Ann Whitney, and then do the same at the store. And I'll have a new envelope for you with that sort of learning opportunity at every historic site. So that's our Kirtland Day. July 7th, we go to the John Johnson Farm in Hiram, Ohio. It would be the same way if it's still closed as it currently is today, or limited opening. Then you'll have the same opportunity to visit the grounds with that envelope after having been educated to go and walk that sacred property and have that spiritual experience there at the Johnson Farm. We then take a 4-hour bus ride with a couple of stops along the way, but 4 hours of travel time to Scranton, Pennsylvania, where we'll spend that night. And during those 4 hours, I'm going to be educating you like crazy, sharing with you everything to help you to prepare you for the next sacred sites that we're going to be visiting. In addition to that, I'm going to share with you some of the church history of of sites that we won't be visiting, such as the Missouri sites and things that happened in Nauvoo and things with the Pioneers and the Mormon Battalion and other things like that. July 8th, we're going to be fully educated and ready to go to the Priesthood Restoration site. We're going to take an opportunity before I let you loose into that site to talk more. We're going to stand on a hill overlooking Joseph Smith's property. You're going to see his home in the background. I'm going to point out the grove where John the Baptist appeared, the Susquehanna River through the trees in the other direction. And I'm going to share with you some things there, some special stories. And then you'll have the opportunity to go and explore the Priesthood Restoration site on your own. Again, with an envelope of information for you to do as kind of a bonus if you want to, or if you don't want to. If you do or don't, either way, for you to go through that site on your own at your own pace, having a spiritual experience. We'll then go to the Susquehanna River. There's never been missionaries at the Susquehanna River, so the way I do tours pre-pandemic is the way we're going to experience the Susquehanna River in July when we go there together. After that, we make our way up into New York to the Peter Whitmer farm. Same thing, you're going to get off the bus knowing everything that took place at the Peter Whitmer farm so that you get off and you walk around that sacred ground and have a spiritual experience. The next day is our Palmyra Day, July 9th. In Palmyra, or in Rochester where we're staying, I've got the hotel ballroom reserved. We're going to meet there on the morning of our Palmyra Day, and I'm going to share with you a lot of things there. Really get a lot of education out to you. We're then going to go on the bus, our first stop being the Hill Cumorah. At the Hill Cumorah, there's missionaries inside the visitor center, and if you were to go into the visitor center before the pandemic, you would see kiosks, interactive kiosks that are commonly found at every visitor center throughout the world. But right now, even though they're open, the kiosks are not available because they don't want you touching them and then the next person coming and touching the kiosk. And so at the Hill Cumorah, what I always do with groups that I've always done is you're allowed to go in the visitor center, use the restroom and get a drink or whatever you'd like. But all the talking and everything we do, the experience that we have at the Hill Cumorah, it's done on the hill. We don't go as a group into the visitor center. And so the Hill Cumorah, we're going to experience the same way my groups have always experienced. And we're going to be able to climb the hill and enjoy that. We're then going to go from there to the Grandin Building. Now, the Grandin Building is where the Book of Mormon got published, and it sits on Main Street in downtown Palmyra. And while we're at the Grandin Building, we're also going to have an opportunity to explore downtown Palmyra, to see all those old churches from different religious groups that Joseph would have visited. We're going to go to Alvin Smith's grave, which is Joseph's older brother, not only to pay our respects, but because his story is an incredible story when it comes to the restoration of the gospel. And so there's a lot of things to do down there. One of the things that we can't do is make a group reservation to go through the Grandin Building. So what we'll do is we'll have about 2 hours of free time down there to go to the outside of the Grandin Building, take your pictures, look in the windows if you'd like, explore downtown. There's some great gift shops. Go look at those 4 churches, one on each corner of that famous intersection. Go with me to visit Alvin's grave, and we'll have plenty of opportunity to have that experience downtown Palmyra. Our next stop is the Smith Family Farm and Sacred Grove. This is where the reconstructed home of the Smiths sits. It's the home where Moroni appeared, also the refurbished home where the Smiths lived for a time as well. 2 homes on the property, as well as the Sacred Grove. We're going to be at this historic site for 3 hours. And in those 3 hours, you can visit the outside of the 2 homes and explore the Sacred Grove. The Sacred Grove doesn't have missionaries, of course. There's no guided tours in the grove. And so it's open as it normally is. It's always been open, and COVID never closed it. And so you'll be able to explore the Sacred Grove as normal. As far as, and that's the last historic site. I'm taking you through the week. Now let me tell you about what all these missionaries have told me. Kirtland, Hiram, Priest of Restoration, Fayette, and Palmyra. All these historic sites, the missionaries have told me this. Please come. Yes, you're welcome to come. Our grounds are open and ready for your group. And they've said, without promising, they have said if our sister missionaries have a break between scheduled reservations, scheduled tours, then your group members will be invited to visit with the sister missionaries. And particularly in Palmyra, it works so nicely where the front doors, they open up the front door of the home and they open up the back door of the home, because when they get really crowded on those summer days back before COVID, people would walk in the front door, look around, take a picture, and walk out the back door. And they said, more than likely, our sister missionaries will have those doors open, and if you approach the homes, they'll say, yes, come through, take a picture, look around, and enjoy this opportunity as you have it. So I'm kind of giving you the worst case because it's the current case. We see things only improving, and opportunities to get inside, to pass through those doors of these historic homes and sites. But if we were to go on the tour today, that's exactly what you could expect to have happen. I see on my notes the last thing that I failed to talk about was visiting the exterior of the Palmyra Temple. Of course, we can't do any temple work in that temple right now, but we will take the opportunity to take you to the Palmyra Temple, and you can walk around the temple grounds there. Now, some of you have elected to have your tour end on the 9th and you're flying home on the 10th. Others of you have extended your tour to go to Niagara Falls on the 10th. Niagara Falls is open as normal. And the Maid of the Mist, it's not running yet because it's not into that season yet. They don't open that till Memorial Day. But if you go online, you see they're selling tickets and they're fully expecting to be open and ready. So everything that you expected your day at Niagara Falls to be, if you're going, continue to expect it because it's going to be open. So the governor of New York is saying we're opening 100% on July 1st. Is the church going to follow suit, or are they going to stay at 8 people per tour every half hour? I don't know. But now you know what it would be like if we went today. This can get in your mind what you could expect potentially, or hopefully, or yeah, we'll just expect that this is the way it's going to be in July. With all of this in mind, I've gotten rid of all cancellation dates. So if you say, you know what, this just isn't for me, you know, with this worst case scenario, which is a probable scenario, if that's not what you want to do, then you can ask for a refund, and that'd be just fine. For those of you who don't, that want to continue on and have this experience, then we'll just keep moving forward, and I'll continue to update you as updates become available. With all of this, if you have any questions, please reach out to me either by phone or by email. Otherwise, I look forward to updating you continually and look forward to meeting you and visiting these sacred sites with you come July.